Welcome back. You're watching Inside Politics. Many thanks for staying with us. It's now about time where we get to listen to what you have to say back at home. Definitely seeing the interactions on social media in about a few minutes. I'll get to sample some of them before we get the final thoughts of our panelists. Let's just start with the calls right now. Already online is Gian Wahome from Kisumu. Gian, good afternoon to you. Always a pleasure when we interact. What do you have to say about the various topical issues we discussed?
Hello, Jesse. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
Yeah. Now, let me go directly to what we have discussed today. And I think I'll start from a little history about our nation. And I would want to state it categorically that when we see these politicians running from one area to another, we have to remember as a country that our women and children suffered the most during the 2007 post-election violence. We have come a long way as a country to heal the wounds and mend the relationship we had. We should not entertain anyone that is trying to take us back. It is evident that the drums of war are being beaten, and it will be foolish if we ignore this as a country. We might have our differences as a country, but never again should we allow our politicians to ignite and fuel ethnic animosity among us. We should remain united no matter what. Just the youth of these countries cannot be allowed to fight each other because of a politician. These politicians pretend to be enemies and sit on the same table, wine and dine. Just recently, we saw the deputy president and the former premier in our stadium, and they were smiling and exchanging smiles. That 500 and 1,000 bob that is being given to these youths to go and cause mayhem and violence is not worth killing your own brother. And that's why I want to fully support the Public Order Act. And this order has nothing to do with infringing upon anybody's rights of freedom of association, of freedom of speech. We should not forget that in 1992, in 1997, 2007, and 2017, politically instigated violence was planned by these same politicians running up and down. So something has to be done, Jesse.
All right.
And that's why I fully support. Now, lastly, Ben, the death of the two young men in Moranga won headlines for the political class that is trying to advance their agenda. The sons and daughters of these politicians, I want to believe, were somewhere in Karen or in Runda, studying or watching movies in big screens.
All right.
That's why I really want to tell the young people of this country, this is not their fight, and it has nothing to do with them. So, what do we do as the young people of this nation? Let us borrow a leaf from these countries like South Sudan, Somali, and our neighbors, Rwanda. These countries were brought down by politicians who used unchecked and inflammatory language to incite their people.
Quite so. All right.
Thank you so much, Ben.
All right. We definitely appreciate your input right here, Gian Wahome. Let's just cross over to our next caller, Mundara Nyakweba. I hope you pronounced your name correctly, Mr. Nyakweba. Many thanks for calling all the way from Nairobi or just here from Nairobi. What do you have to say? Mundara Nyakweba, can you hear me? Well, unfortunately, we seem to have lost that connection. Let's take in Habib Omar, who's calling from Nairobi as well. Habib Omar, can you hear me? Well, we encourage you to give us your take. Let me just take a look at what's transpiring on social media as we await those particular callers. I can see a question posed to Karori Kipchumba. I'm sure he'll definitely be in a position to answer later on, by Odio Ward Maria, who asked what intentions informed the Security Laws Amendment Bill of 2014. Poses it to Kipchumba, saying, you're telling us of the ideal but not the reality that was overseen by the political mentor and the stooges back in 2014. Another one, Don Sabo, who's been very active on Twitter. We do appreciate that. Perhaps give us your call sometime as well. Don Sabo says, anyone campaigning must resign from their current position and go to campaign. Any campaigner must quit and join the campaigners. That's what he says. Just taking a look at another one, still by Don Sabwa. He says the basis of resigning is to halt campaigns. Stop taking advantage of your position in relation to others. Now, let's go back to your call. Made to understand Habib Omar is back on the line. Omar, a very good afternoon to you. What's your take?
Good afternoon, Jesse and the panel. Now, my concern is about the young men being used as pawns. What I'm saying?
Yes, we can hear you. Continue.
Yeah, it's unacceptable that the politicians are going to use our young men and women to go to bring farakas in a meeting. You can remember now there was this funeral service that people are supposed to respect the family of the deceased, and now they start fighting rather than consoling the family. Do you think that is right? That is not right at all. The other one, I want to get clarification maybe from Kipchumba or one of the panels there. When you are an MCA, either elected or nominated, when the election is announced that it will be on this day, the county stands dissolved. So I don't think now an MCA would write another letter to resign so that he can go and stand as a member of parliament. A member of parliament does not write a letter that he has resigned as a member of parliament. He just, because the parliament stands dissolved once they are told to go home. Do you need to write another letter that you are supposed to go and contest to be a governor? Because you will find that even governors, they do not resign. If now is the first governor who is supposed to, the first governor is supposed to go for 5 years and another 5 years. If his term is another 5 years, he doesn't have to resign governor so that he can go and contest maybe another seat, even if you want to have a member of parliament. I would like that clarification, maybe from one of the panel or the lawyer there.
All right.
But if your appointment is as an official in a parastatal, this is a very different matter. You stand or like you say, you are maybe a chairman of a parastatal. You have to resign, of course. That one I'm sure of before 6 months comes. But as a member of parliament, as a member of MCA, you stand dissolved once we are going to the elections. Thank you.
All right, many thanks, Habib Omar. Quite an interesting question right there, and we'll definitely forward that particular question to the panelists. I think Wakili will start with the final thoughts. Wakili, a couple of questions forwarded in terms of the precedence of law and all that. Just taking a look at one tweet, let me read it out loud once again. Odia Ward Maria asks, ask Karori Kipchumba what intentions informed the Security Laws Amendment Bill of 2014. As you give us your final thought, also rebound on what Habib Omar, our final caller, had to say. Kipchumba, briefly, kindly.
I think, thank you, Jess, and thank you to Habib, and thank you to the word guy. I think we have to look at a society, and as captioned in the Tanzanian case, the Ndianabo case, the law grows as so is society. You cannot at one instance say we have developed enough laws for our problems. Problems keep on evolving, and that's why the law and that's why we have parliament must be responsive to our laws. The security laws that were brought into place in 2014, and they were informed by the Okoa and the Machozi Monday chaos, must be looked at and understood that whereas those laws were amended and with a lot of pain and suffering in parliament, they must be understood that the bad laws were declared unconstitutional by the Constitutional Court. The good ones were retained within our law books. And what we need is not the plurality of our law. What we need is the neutrality of implementations of our laws. The people implementing those laws must be as neutral as it can get. They must be within the line so that nobody gets some notion that there is favoritism. When it comes to the last question asked by Habib Omar, the issue that why the Constitution bars a member of county assembly from vying to be a member of parliament is for abundance of caution and to make sure that there is clear dichotomy, so that it was a bit to make sure that we tidy our politics. And when you read Article 99(2), you realize that it says that you cannot vie for a seat if you are still a state officer. So therefore, even if Wanjiku Kibe was not, Wanjiku Kibe has been barred in two limbs. One, as an MCA. Two, he was still a state officer by the time she was vying. So those are things must be noted. And the other thing also that must be noted, and I hope Mheshimiwa, the Senator for Trans Nzoia Mbito, is listening and watching the show so that he can use the wisdom from Justice Weldon Korir to enrich his bill, the one that tries to bar governors from contesting downwards, but for going forward. And also when you read this bill, you get some sort of trying to tidy up the political environment by not allowing the governor to just leave from being a governor and come and vie to be a member of parliament is for good caution. Just an example as finality, Jesse.
Kindly, 30 seconds, sir.
If today I'm a governor of, let's say, Turkana County, and I want to vie to be a member of parliament of a constituency in Turkana County, what I will do in the last year or my last term as a governor, I'll use the resources of the county, focus them in a place where I'll be vying so that I can get before others. And that one goes to the issue of making sure that the playing field, the election field is level.
All right. And many thanks, Kipchumba. I'll have to cut you short there. So we also get to hear what the other panelists have to say. Mark Bichachi, your final thoughts. Even as you do that, Simon Kamau Warui says on Twitter, what was displayed in Bondo is nothing but political conmanship. Those self-proclaimed elders have no say whatsoever. What do you tell Simon?
Well, I don't know what the conmanship was, because were the people who attended Kikuyus and Luos, did they have a meeting? Did they talk? So what was the con exactly? You know, this idea that you just brush everything with broad strokes is very lazy thinking within our political class. And it's become our go-to phrases, political conmanship. You've been paid to say that. It doesn't work anymore. Let's discuss the issues that were discussed there and find out whether they're real. And speaking of issues, I'd like to remind Kenyans that the politics of identity has always been dangerous. In the 1920s, Hitler told the Germans they were better than any race. They went to war. In 2007, we were told that it is 42 versus 1. We went to war. Today, we've decided it is hustler versus dynasty. I leave it to you to decide where we are going next.
A good point to end your thought. Let's cross over to Dismas Mukua. Your final thoughts as we conclude.
The ruling by Justice Korir is a very important one, and we need to look at it from two perspectives. That as we plan to elect our leaders, is there room for meritocracy? So that when you look at the candidates who presented themselves, and we know some of them want to go to office through fraud, how do we look at those leaders? What's the role of IBC? Because it's very clear that we keep on going to the polls and electing people and assuming that they're going to take us to the next level, but they're not competent. So there's a role for political parties to ensure you have solid candidates, and also for Mora and Akinyi to pick very solid candidates based on meritocracy and not tribe or not anything else. Then the second impact of that ruling is if you're in office and you're not delivering value, would it not be a good thing for you to resign your position? Like, for instance, we are told that the deputy president is not having a lot of impact in our decision-making process, policy-making process, which is why he's gone to the so-called wheelbarrow economics. Would it be a good idea for him to resign his position today so that he doesn't continue staying at office and getting paid for doing nothing? I don't know whether Gloria would be interested in asking the DP from the time he says from the time of the handshake is not been delivering value to Kenyans.
All right.
I don't know whether Gloria would be interested in asking the DP to refund that kind of money. But in other words, I'm saying that when we...
Many thanks, Dismas Mukua. We'll definitely give Gloria a chance, but briefly, 30 seconds. Hesbon Owila, kindly be brief as you give your final thoughts.
I think I'll be very brief. There are two things that we need to look at as we talk about the political rallies and the security in these political rallies. One is that as a democracy, we are better off as voters if we are informed and have the knowledge. Then number two, as our political leaders, we'll be better off making a judgment of what they have to present if whatever they say in these political rallies are anchored on knowledge, truth, and justice. And to provide an environment that gives them that platform to articulate their issues is very important. And any politician who is against order in public rallies is a politician who wants to breed chaos and does not want to articulate what he has for this country.
Gloria, very briefly, very briefly.
Yes, it's a beautiful Sunday indeed, because for once, Mark Bichachi and I are on the same page. We are pushing for issue-based politics. Yes, we are pushing for issue-based politics, and I love that he has spoken that early campaigns should be put aside. For me, I would say politicians should understand that campaigns doesn't necessarily have to be that we are going around, going to meet elders and be segregated with all this Kikuyu or Luos or whatever culture. But campaigns could also mean that you are showcasing the work that you have been doing while in office, or you are showcasing the impact that you have had in whatever office or capacity that you have been in. So, no. So, and also to answer...
Unfortunately, Gloria, we'll have to end it at that note due to time. Many thanks for your contribution, Gloria Oroba, who's a youth policy analyst, Mark Bichachi, who's a communications strategist, Hesbon Owila, media and political communications expert, Kipchumba Karori, advocate, political strategist, and Dismas Mukua, political risk analyst. Let's meet next week, same place, same time. Have yourself a good one.